Hi guys, welcome to Jesus Loves Joe. I'm Hope, and today I have two guests with me. I have Tom Coker and Dr. Al Jones, who've been on the podcast with me before, and we're talking about counseling topics. And today our topic is you're not doing grief wrong. So we get a lot of clients that come to us who are experiencing grief. Some know it, some don't know it. Grief is one of the few things every person is going to experience, right? We're not going to get
That's
out
true.
of here without grief. But most people are completely unprepared for it. They don't know what it looks like, especially if it's a loss for the first time, or maybe they've had losses and they just didn't know how to grieve or what grief looked like. So some of you listening right now are in grief. Some of you are walking with someone who's experiencing some grief. If you've ever thought, am I doing this wrong? You're not alone. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Good.
Because when I ask people, what is your biggest question about grief? They're like, am I doing this right? Like there's a way to do it, right?
It's the perception that it follows a pattern and it follows a timeline.
Correct.
And it doesn't.
And it doesn't. So my first question for you guys is, what's something about grief that most people misunderstand?
Well, I think that what Al just said is probably the biggest thing, is that it's not a linear process. That people tend to, think that it needs to be in these stages. You hear about the 5 stages of grief, which I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit later. But yeah, it's more like a bowl of spaghetti. You might feel anger 1 second, and then, a few minutes later you feel fine, like it's, and then all of a sudden you're in that bargaining stage and you're asking the what ifs and the whys, and
Exactly.
so yeah.
I think that's the big part of it, is that because you never know from one moment to the next what emotion's going to show up or what's going to trigger a certain emotion, whether it's sadness or happiness or this deep thought of memories past, and it can change in minutes.
That's exactly right. And so why do people feel like they're doing it wrong? For me, I think people think the stages go in order. And so if they've been through anger, let's say, and they have another angry episode, they think they're doing it wrong. Why do people think that?
Well, first, let me stop and step back and talk about just these are the 5 stages of grief, and then we can kind of bounce off of that. So in 1969, a doctor that was working with terminally ill cancer patients came up with the 5 stages of grief. And those stages, look at it, is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And so Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, when she came up with that, she was thinking about it from the perspective of, I'm just now telling a terminally ill cancer patient that they're going to die. And so that's when the denial comes in. This can't be possible. Why is this happening? And then they get angry. Why am I having to go through this? And then they get into the bargaining. Well, God, if you'll just do this, then I will always do that. Then the depression comes in.
Right.
And then finally the acceptance. And so, and unfortunately, when you hear about the stages of grief, one thing is that it was designed for cancer patients.
Right.
And now it's got this broad umbrella, which is fine, except that people think that they're going to do it in order. And because they don't do it in order, they think they're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Or it's like, okay, I'm finally past the anger stage, so I shouldn't be back at denial, or I shouldn't go from anger straight into acceptance. And so they can't get it right. And most of the time with a death, there's not you don't have a bargaining time.
No.
You skip that.
Right.
Because they're not coming back.
Well, and I think part of that too is that we expect that we should hit all 5, and sometimes you may only hit 2 of them.
Right.
You're not necessarily going to hit all of them, and so it's like, why aren't I feeling angry about this? Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. Now, it could be. It could be that you're in denial and you haven't got there. But it also, I've experienced death, and I don't know that I ever hit the angry stage of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it look a little different for everybody, and it depends on the type of loss. For example, if you've had a terminally ill person for a while, you might have already walked through some of the grief stages before you even lose someone,
right?
And not even realize that you've already had to walk through some of that. So okay, what are some ways grief shows up that people don't expect?
That's tough.
Yeah, I have a gal who came to me and she was just like, I don't have any motivation. I'm so tired. And so she didn't expect that, because grief can weigh you down. It can affect you physically, emotionally, spiritually, and just the fact that she didn't have the capacity to handle things was very unexpected for her.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when I lost my wife, I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't want to be with people either.
Yeah.
Or I would think I need to get out and be with people, and then as soon as I'm with people, it's like, wait, I don't fit. I don't have a place. And so one of the things people don't expect is this sense of, I have lost my identity. I don't know who I am anymore, because especially when it's a spouse, it's always been the two of you, and now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out, where's my place.
Yeah, I have a friend who says it was really hard when she'd hear the word couple, because she wasn't a couple, and so automatically, even though the people around her wanted to include her, she felt excluded. Right?
Well, and there's also triggers as you're walking it out that you wouldn't expect. Maybe a certain smell, or something you just see on TV or whatever, and it's like, I'm not even thinking about what's going on in my life as far as this loss, and all of a sudden you're just overcome because of something completely unexpected. So yeah, I think Al said it at the beginning. It's like within minutes or seconds, something can switch and turn on a dime, and you don't expect that. You think, oh, I'm going to be in this stage for a little while, and then this stage for a little while, and it's like minute by minute it can change. And I think that does catch a lot of people off guard. And I like your point too, is because what you're dealing with is heavy, and there is a physical exhaustion that comes from that mental and emotional exhaustion. So yeah, it hits at every level.
Yeah, especially if you're in a depression or heading into a depressive state. Well, that's going to reduce your energy and capacity level.
For sure.
Quite a bit. And so, okay, those are awesome. What tends to keep people stuck in grief?
To me, I think it's the thought of, if I move on, whatever that looks like, if I move on, then I will lose them completely. Or if I move on, then I'm saying that it wasn't that bad, or I don't hurt that much. And so people will hold on to things like they won't get rid of the clothes.
Right. Or
they won't get rid of certain things because this horrible guilt that they feel. And yet keeping all of that stuff oftentimes just perpetuates it and keeps it going longer, because they're not able to, they want things to stay like they were, but they're not.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the other thing is that people tend to want to be strong for others, and so they don't deal with the emotions that they need to deal with. And I think it's really important that when you're experiencing those emotions, you allow yourself to experience those emotions. I like to say it's not a dwelling place; it's a place that you pass through, but you need to experience that journey.
Yeah, that's a good point, because one of the things that I did, and I've also told other people, is like, give yourself permission, but set parameters on it. And it was kind of like this. It's like, okay, I'm really struggling this morning. I'm having a hard day. I'm going to allow myself to wallow in this for 30 minutes, and then I'm getting up and I'm going and doing. And something about that, setting those parameters, means that I'm taking control of my emotions and not my emotions controlling me.
Absolutely. So I call that a grief window.
Okay.
So giving yourself permission to have time to grieve, but putting some parameters on it. Because if you don't give it space, it can kind of take up all the space.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do think we have to give ourselves that space when we recognize it's there. So grief window is a tool you can use to give yourself space to just do whatever. You know, if it's pray, journal, read your Bible, just space, cry, whatever it is you need, be angry, whatever it is. You just have that space to do it.
That's a good point. And another part of that too is take that time to celebrate the person and what, not just, initially, but down the road. It's like when there's a birthday or an anniversary, instead of wallowing in it, you do things that are very intentional to remember to celebrate what was there.
Yeah, that intentionality is super important. It's one of those things that helps you get unstuck.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remind my clients that I use the analogy of, you feel like when you're in that place, especially when you're in that depression stage, that you're in this pit. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that you're in a tunnel. You just have to keep walking through. There may be a turn in that tunnel, so you don't see the light, but if you just keep walking, you'll make it through. Yeah. But experience the journey. There's aspects of that. God designed us to grieve. I mean, he grieved himself, even knowing that he was going to raise Lazarus up, he still wept. Yeah. And so grieving is an important part of the process. So we don't want to dismiss those feelings or emotions, and we end up getting stuck in unresolved grief. But we don't want to allow that to be a dwelling place.
Yeah, I think that's good. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship with God in this for a minute. How does grief impact someone's relationship with God?
Wow. It can in lots of ways. One is that this isn't right, this isn't fair. Mm-hmm. And so the anger kicks in. And because we had all these plans, and then now it's it's like, make this make sense. Yeah. And grief doesn't always make sense, and things happen in our life that are surprises that we don't expect. And so where the God comes into it is that he is your greatest source in the midst of the pain. Mm-hmm. So I need to run to him in the midst of the grief and not run from him because I'm angry. And so there's this push-pull that can happen in the midst of it as well. And also realize that God's okay with you being upset with him, because he's going to be there to catch you in the midst of it. You don't want to stay in that place, but it's okay to express to him what what you're experiencing. And you need to do that. And so he is your greatest comfort in the midst of grief.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, that made me think, grief happens whenever there's loss, right? We're talking about this more extreme loss of losing someone this side of heaven, right? But there are things like loss of dreams, and sometimes that is tied to the person you lost.
Right.
But there are stages in life that things didn't go the way you planned, or you thought they were going to go, or there was loss of relationship that feels like death, right? Loss of marriages, loss of identity. All these things are kind of tied together when you experience loss. And you're
experiencing all of them at the same time, quite often.
Which is why the emotional capacity to handle your normal pace of life is probably not there. And some grace for yourself. Absolutely. Is a good thing. That I tell my clients that a lot. Have some grace for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And, I again, going back to visit those places and those emotions, allow yourself to experience those things, because we weren't designed to hold on to those. And that does a whole lot more damage in the long run to hold on to it. So you need to experience the grieving process, and not try to run away from it. But yeah, I think again, the Lord is our place of refuge. unfortunately, we have an enemy that wants to draw us away from that, to be focused on being angry and the why question. And the why question never satisfies. No answer is ever going to completely satisfy. And so I think, one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to someone is just don't play the why game. It's now that's a battle. It's hard. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
But any energy that you spend in that is never going to lead to a place of satisfaction.
Yep. And I think a lot of that happens kind of around that bargaining phase before you move into
Absolutely.
Before acceptance can happen sometimes. And sometimes, like you said, you understand the why, but you still are humanness.
Yeah.
Doesn't like it, right? And we can get angry at God. And so you guys answered that question. Okay. Before we move into this next thing, anything else you'd say? Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. Psalms. That's a great place to go, guys. So what they were talking about is this combination of a lament versus trust.
Right.
Right.
And how they can exist together.
Yeah.
And that's an important part. So if maybe you're struggling with what that looks like, read some of David's Psalms.
Yeah.
Spend some time in worship, with those Psalms.
The Psalms of Lament are so good because when you read those, usually David is talking about how horrible things are, but almost every one of them end with, "But God, you are still good. But God, you are faithful." And even writing your own Psalm of Lament can be so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things you talked about just now, Tom, that I would say to make it a little bit more practical to what you guys are saying is to do a name the loss exercise and actually have them name what they've lost. It's not just a person.
Right.
There's a lot of things associated with it. Sense of security, what I thought my future would be like, a relationship as I know it. I'm not a couple anymore. Whatever it is, my security that I had, maybe I had my security in these financial situations, and there's been some devastation along with that. There can be lots of layers to grief that make it complicated. So acknowledging it is what I've heard both of you say that.
Right.
And so you can actually name those things, and that could be a healthy
Very
place
much.
to get them
Yep.
out.
For sure.
of
Yeah,
your
you
head.
can't deal with the things that you don't admit. So
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Okay, all right. What do people get wrong when trying to help someone who's grieving?
Well, that was my topic. There were several things that I experienced through losing a spouse that I would sometimes I would be nice, but I would shake my head inside like, what, and so some of the things that were things like, well, they're in a better place. Well, I know that, but that's not what I want right now. It's truth, but that doesn't help me where I'm at right now.
Yep.
Or things like, I know what it's like. I lost my dog last year. And I would think, no.
Yeah.
Yes. But things that practical things that people miss are things like, if you need anything, let me know. The reality is, in the midst of deep grief, you don't have the capacity for that. What you need is someone to say, you know what? I will be by this afternoon at 4:00 and I'm going to mow your yard.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to the grocery store today and I'm picking up these things for you. Don't ask what you can do. Tell them what you're going to do.
Yes. I've heard that over and over from people. They don't know what they need necessarily.
right, for sure.
And the other big one is, well, I didn't say anything to you because I didn't want to make you sad. And so I didn't say anything at all. And what happens is it increases a sense of isolation. and to know that it's okay to say, you look like you're having a hard day today. Can I just sit here with you and let you talk?
Yeah, presence.
And just sit. Those are the key things to me. It's giving the opportunity to let them talk, and doing practical things that make a difference.
Yeah, I also think it's important to share stories, share the good things, the positive memories and the fun memories and the things. I know that, losing my parents, those are the things that meant the most to me, was just hearing the stories, because it meant that they meant something to them. And so, which means a great deal, obviously, to the one who's suffering the loss. So,
yeah. So don't be afraid to say the name or tell the good story, or write down when the person's birthday is, and make sure you check in with your friend, on those days, because their hearts, one of the things that people ask, and I can't remember if this is one of the questions. No, I don't think I asked this directly. People ask, when will I be normal again? And the truth is, grief is almost redesigning you. You don't, when you lose someone, you don't lose the love. Or when maybe if it was a dream or something like that, God can realign those things, but there's a people can't be replaced.
right.
And so there's a grief there that you're going to learn to live with. It doesn't just necessarily go away.
Yeah, that hole won't be replaced.
Right.
And to expect that it will be is not, you're setting yourself up.
Yeah.
The when will I be normal, or when will, is really, I think you're right, because it's a redefining, and also it's about being stuck. I think you have to realize that, especially when it's a spouse or a parent or a child, especially it's like you have to walk through the first year. The first year is going to be the hardest, because you're going to have birthdays, anniversaries, special events, those kind of things. So know that your first year, the year of first, are the most difficult. But you also have to know that things have changed, but it doesn't mean that things aren't still good.
Right.
And you can find joy in the midst of mourning.
And those can coexist together.
Right. And it's okay to do things and have fun and enjoy it. Just because you're walking through, even during that first year, you're walking through things, it's still okay to have fun.
Now, if you're practicing something like a grief window, giving yourself space to do those, to experience what you're walking through, frees you up to engage with others, because isolation is probably one of the biggest dangers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Here's some.
Yeah. And I think, again, that is the trap of the enemy. He wants you to isolate. And that's in anything, whether you're dealing with grief or other things. I mean, isolation is where he does his best work, there in the darkness. So it's that going back to your word, intentional about things, intentionally getting out and being with people and doing things. Yeah, there's days to just lay in bed and feel and experience that. But you have to get up and move. Yeah. Again, it's like I said, you think you're in a pit, but you're in a tunnel. But if you don't get up and move, you might as well be in a pit. Right. Because you can't get through it until you walk it out.
Got to keep moving in a tunnel.
That's right.
But the other end doesn't look like before.
It doesn't.
Nor is that true for any of our life experiences, right? Our life experiences, God uses those in our lives, and through those processes, we have the opportunity to look more like Him, right? If we're keeping a biblical perspective, we've got our people around us. We haven't pushed everyone away, right? And, we keep walking forward. And this person, as believers, we look forward to seeing our loved ones on the other side, but it's not going to look like here, guys. So we also have to try not to put our future in the same box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where trusting
look like now.
Trusting the Lord and what He has for you is good. I mean, my life verse is Jeremiah 29. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. And you may feel harmed by that loss, right?
Yeah,
and it's not a pain-free experience, but do we trust that ultimately God is prospering us? Again, that's not financially, but that's from a place of peace and joy and contentment. And of course, an eternal perspective on that is, everything falls short here compared to eternity. But, I have the saying that time heals all wounds is probably one of the biggest lies ever. And all wounds take time to heal. Of course, God can touch anything and heal it instantaneously. But for most things, we have to walk through things. We have to experience. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, that time in of itself is not going to heal that wound. You have to do that with the Lord's help and walk it out.
Right.
And you will get to the other side. Now, you may have scars on the other side of that wound.
Right.
And it is going to look different. It's going to feel different. But it doesn't mean it's not, what God's going to do with that is not awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I had a question for you, Al. You said the first year can be the hardest. But did you find after that there were still triggers?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years and there's still triggers.
Right. And that happens, right?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's
a part of you still love.
And a trigger can be, like Tom said, a song, a smell, or something like that. But typically, when you're out of that first year, a trigger may trigger something and you feel the pain for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, it's not I'm going to wallow in this for a whole day over a song, a smell, or an event. Yeah,
so one of the things I've described to people is a grief wave. And they actually, like he just said, they don't last very long. So, when you experience that, it can sometimes cause anxiety. For some people I've seen in my clients. And so the recognizing, the wave hits. And to be able to tell yourself, okay, I got to pause. I got to take slow breaths and name it. So this is grief. This is a grief wave. And let the feeling move through you to the other side. It will pass. And you may have to tell your brain that, because otherwise your body will respond.
If you don't let it move through you, that's where you get stuck, and that's where you end up falling into the black hole.
Or numbing. We haven't mentioned numbing. Some ways people tend to get themselves stuck if they don't.
And part of that is the numbing is also finding substitutes that aren't healthy.
Right.
Excessive drinking or spending or some of those kind of things. It's trying to numb that or trying to cope with it that's unhealthy. It's like avoiding making huge major life change decisions within that, especially within that first year. Don't sell your house or don't make huge moves just as you're during that first year, because you typically are not thinking quite as clearly when it comes to to major life decisions.
That's true. So when should someone consider counseling?
I think anytime that they feel like that, they need help with something, or even if they don't know that they need help, to pray about it. Part of what you just said, Al, with, as you're walking through stuff and maybe trying to numb yourself in certain ways or whatever, to have someone that can kind of point that out in the moment, because we're naturally self-preservists. And so we do things to avoid hurt. We don't naturally step into pain. And so having someone to help you recognize that, so whether that's a counselor or a pastor or a friend or a mentor or whatever, I think it's good, again, to surround yourself with people that can speak into you, that love you where you're at, that you feel like you can trust, because sometimes you're so blinded to the situation because of the emotion, you need that guidance. So really, there's not a bad time to do it.
Yeah, that's what I started. I was thinking, Grief Share is a wonderful program to walk people through it, because you're sitting there with the people that know. Now, one thing about Grief Share, and this was told to me, and I was glad I did that, was the first time you go, you think, I'm not going back. and I was told, you have to go at least 3 times. The person that recommended it had gone through it, and they said, you cannot quit till you've gone at least 3 times, And the other thing about timing on it too is that I don't think there's anything wrong with after our first couple months, is that you see someone a few times to kind of see, where do you think I'm at in the process? And then anytime if you feel like I really think I'm stuck, I'm having my bad days are lasting all day, and I'm going through that 5 days out of the week. You're not moving through it well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm able to do as a counselor is also to give outside perspective, right? And be able to say, okay, I can see where you're at. They may not see where they're at, or I can say, you're doing great. That's perfect. Because it is, am I doing this right? I was like, there's really not one right way to do it, but yes, you're doing a great job, and really cheering them on, because they do feel uncomfortable talking to other people, because other people around them are going through their own phase of grief, and it's hard for them to bring each other comfort after a little bit of time sets in.
That's good.
So what would you guys say? Anything else practical you have for our listeners that we haven't covered? Check your notes that we want to make sure to say.
I think the most practical thing is realizing that we all go through it, and you will live through it, and you will come out the other side whenever that is, and it's going to be good.
I think so.
And you're not alone.
Alone.
You feel alone. You feel like you're the only person going through it at the time, but you're not alone. Like you said, everybody goes through it. And I think it's worth reiterating, do not isolate yourself.
Yeah, find someone, if you are that person that's grieving, that's okay just sitting with you. Right? Nobody has to have all the right things to say.
That's right.
And maybe be that person for somebody else. Just be present and be practical. Yeah. Present and practical. Don't ask what they need. Look for what you think they might need and just do it.
It's good.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, share, send us some comments. Let us know what your questions are. And we just really enjoyed. Thank you, Al and Tom, for being here today. And look forward to our next time. See you later.